Leadership can be lonely. Entrepreneurship can be even lonelier. But if you keep trying to pour from an empty cup, everybody loses. When you learn to feed your mind, your body, and your soul, you stop just managing tasks and you start making people feel welcome, comfortable, and important. That's where the magic and the meaning actually live. If you have ever looked at your business and thought, I have the playbook, why isn't the ball moving down the field? Then this episode is for you. Because most entrepreneurs hear the word hospitality, and what do we think? We think hotels and we think restaurants. But what if hospitality is actually the way you treat every human you interact with? Your team, your clients, your partners, your family. What if hospitality is how you make people feel? Welcome, comfortable, important every time they touch your world. Because today on the show, I'm joined by someone who has literally built his entire life around that idea. Taylor Scott is a best-selling author of 3 books, Ball Games to Boardrooms, Lead with Hospitality, and his newest book, Give Hospitality. He spent about 20 years in hospitality and entertainment with Disney parks and resorts, Gaylord Hotels, the Wynn, and the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. And he has led teams, opened properties, studied at Cornell University, and now he travels around speaking and consulting on how to build cultures people love to work in and that customers love to buy from. And in this conversation today, we unpack why the essence of both hospitality and transformational leadership is the same. We make people feel welcome, we make them feel comfortable, and we make them feel important. And so whether they're a guest in your business or a team member on your payroll, you're going to hear Taylor break down emotional intelligence in a way that's insanely practical. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and how all 3 roll into relationship management. And so he walks us through his 6 virtues of leading with hospitality, from a commitment to connection, to striving for self-mastery, to treating leadership as a service where you listen, educate, act, and deliver. We get into how to engage purposely through giving and meaningful recognition, why I see you can change a culture, and what it means to coach with grace, grit, and intention. We also get really tactical and in the weeds about empathy, because Taylor gives you a single sentence you can use in hard conversations with clients, team members, or your kids that immediately shifts you out of defensiveness and into connection. If what happened to you had happened to me, I'd feel just as you do. So we talk about why Disneyland will never be finished, why you as a leader will never be finished either. We hit feeding your mind, your body, and your soul, so you're not trying to pour into others from an empty cup. And we close with how to create what he calls epic moments, elevated joy, pride, insight, and connection for your team and for your customers. And so if you're tired of just managing tasks and you're ready to lead people in a way that creates both money and meaning, this episode will feel like a masterclass that you'll come back to again. So without further ado, let's get into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. It is a snowy Montana morning early on in the season, which I'm stoked for. It might mean some epic snowboarding this year. And interestingly enough, I am joined today by an incredible guest who's probably in the complete opposite weather of me, coming all the way from Vegas. And I am excited about this one because I was reflecting on the podcast, and in thinking through 700 episodes, I think the word of the day today is going to be a word we haven't discussed before. And that word is hospitality. And I am really excited to unpack this one and give you all the ways in which hospitality applies to your business, how hospitality is relationships, how hospitality is customer journey. And I'm incredibly excited, and I'm going to get into his bio in a minute, to be joined by my new friend, because truthfully, we forgot to hit record and we've been catching up and connecting and like Insta BFF before the show, but I'm incredibly excited to have him. So Taylor, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, man, you already got 2 Christmas trees up too, so I love the holiday spirit.
Absolutely. We're in it to win it.
It's early. It's the moment Halloween ends, Christmas trees go up and like, let's go. And then I think last year I left mine up till March or April. And I was like, we all need a little bit of holiday cheer.
100%. Yeah. I'm here for it.
Yeah, me
full
too.
Support. Full support.
Me too. And before I even get into your bio or into the background, you know, we were talking before the show, but you have an extensive background in hospitality. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show that probably think that word only applies to like the hotel industry. But for me, you know, hospitality is really like how we treat people, how we make them feel, and the experience that they have. And so I'm curious from your perspective, knowing that all entrepreneurs listen to the show, if people were really to take one thing or three things from what we're going to talk about today on like your hospitality first approach, what do you think would be possible for them, like for them and their clients, for them and their team, for them and themselves, and like what they could experience or what they could expect to like really understand when they apply that?
Yeah, we'll get into much more of it and go deep, I'm sure, in this conversation. But I'll sum it up this way. When you lead with hospitality as a leader, the people that are on your teams that are out there delivering the magic, they will deliver memorable hospitality. And then now you have this community where the leadership culture rhymes with that frontline team culture. And then I didn't make this up, but I heard it from an author and a speaker that I love dearly and have been following and learning from for about 15 years now. But when you do it in this way, you're able to make both money and meaning at the same time.
Yeah, you basically just summarized 700 episodes of my podcast on like what the goal is, because money is a byproduct of meaning. And so I love that. And I got a couple obvious questions so we can set the tone. But before I do, I kind of want to give everybody a little bit of background. So you are a best-selling author, 3 books. You are a keynote champion talking about this all across the world and really going to big companies and small companies and basically do organizational or development consulting. And you have 20 years in hospitality entertainment, like Disney parks and resorts, the Gaylord hotels, which I love the Gaylords. I do a lot of events there and they're really comfortable. Wynn, the Cosmo, Las Vegas, and little Cornell University history, you know, alumni, even though I didn't go to college, I celebrate the people that do. And so you basically build cultures and help build cultures that people love to work in and that customers love to buy from. And you have a new book that just came out, Give Hospitality, right? And before that, it was Lead with Hospitality.
That is correct.
Amazing, amazing. So for those wondering already, if you're like, oh, I'm already curious and I want to check that out, full name, Taylor Scott. Book names, Give Hospitality. Prior to Lead with Hospitality, and what was the first one?
First one was called Ball Games to Boardrooms, leadership, business, and life lessons from our coaches we never knew we needed. All those things that we learned playing sports growing up, that we can apply those lessons today in our lives to experience more money and meaning at the same time.
I love it, man. I love it. So I'm curious, just to kind of frame this conversation from your perspective, how would you define hospitality?
Good question. I always say this, or I usually say something to this effect, whether it's a keynote or a live learning experience, a workshop, or even a conversation like this. I did internships at Walt Disney World all through undergrad, and then I was in a management internship at Walt Disney World when I graduated. But then, like, it'll date me here, but like while I was on that first sort of like temporary salaried management internship, 9/11 hit in 2001. So they couldn't status any of the temporary leaders full time. So luckily for me, Gaylord Palms Resort and Convention Center in Kissimmee, Florida, right basically across the street from Walt Disney World property, right there for those of you that have ever been, they were opening on February 2nd, 2002. So 02 at 2:02 p.m., fireworks in the lobby. So anyway, short story longer, I went over there for this grand hire event, basically begged somebody to hire me. It ends up working out. So I was on the opening team of that property as a housekeeping manager. That was my first time leadership role. They brought in a guest speaker. So like, it's like 3 or 4 weeks before we opened. And like all the salaried leaders were in the lobby with the atrium of Gaylord Palms in the background. And this guy says, friends, let me tell you something. Whether you work in hospitality for the next 2 years or the next 20 years, I want you to remember that the essence of hospitality is the ability to make people feel welcome, comfortable, and important. And then I go on this run and I work there for a few years, go to Walt Disney World, open another hotel at Walt Disney World, then go to sales and marketing at Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, then go to graduate school in the big bad Ivy League up at Cornell. Then I land here in Las Vegas. I'm a director at the age of 28, way too early, wasn't ready. I was the director of loyalty marketing at Wynn and Encore, then essentially when we were opening Encore, then basically did the same job at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas for the opening. Then I went back to Disney, led the sales team at Disney Vacation Club, Disney's version of timeshare, vacation ownership, but based at the Disneyland Resort. I just share that to say I'm convinced not only is the essence of hospitality the ability to make people feel welcome, comfortable, important. I'm here to tell you the essence of inspirational leadership, the essence of, dare I say, transformational leadership is also the ability to make people feel welcome, comfortable, and important. Because before anybody gets inspired to go do anything, they first got to feel.
Well, it's so interesting because the correlation's huge, because I teach customer journey to scale, and I teach that every decision a human being makes is an emotional based decision. Well, in order for them to make a decision, they have to feel safe. In order for them to feel safe, you have to strike an emotion. In order to strike that emotion, you have to make them feel safe, seen, heard, respected, understood. And so I love the way that you define that. And I want to do this early, and I want to play devil's advocate early, because I've heard the word hospitality a lot, right? I live in this world, corporate consulting, all this coaching. And I've heard plenty of people that hospitality is just being nice. How do you respond to hospitality as just being nice?
Yeah, I would say just being nice is more like, well, let me just do this. Fellow Cornellian Will Guidara. We all know him. He wrote the book Unreasonable Hospitality. He tells great stories throughout there about how he went to work for Danny Meyer and at 11 Madison Park, and then ended up, he and a partner bought it from Danny, and then they took EMP, 11 Madison Park, from a middle-of-the-road restaurant to the #1 restaurant in the world. And there's story upon stories upon story about how they approached it with this mindset and heart set of just being like unreasonable with the levels of hospitality that they would deliver. And I love his quote. Ready? It sums up your exact question. He says, service is black and white, but hospitality is in color. So like service is something we do, but hospitality is, something we feel, whether we're delivering it or we're receiving it. There's a feeling that goes along with that. So for me, it's just kind of like a little bit more. It's a little bit more, and I hate to be the Disney guy here, but you can take the boy out of Disney. You can't take the Disney out of the boy. It's kind of like, it's just a little bit, hospitality is just a little bit more magical than merely being nice.
Yeah. And would you say, like, was there like a pivotal moment for you, right? Because like starting early on, like 2002, did you go in believing and already understand that like leadership had to start with how you made people feel? Or was there like a moment that stood out for you that like kind of changed everything for you in this perspective?
Yeah, good question. No, it was kind of gradual, really.
Okay.
For me, I fell in love with the art of hospitality first. Like I wanted to be that. Like when I was sitting there at the age of 22, in the audience of where the guy said, "Friends, let me tell you something. The essence of hospitality, make people feel welcome, comfortable, important." I'm like, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. Because like I love the idea of just making magic for people, like guests. That's why I interned at Walt Disney World every single summer in undergrad, and I would go pick up shifts during each semester. Because I went to undergrad in Lakeland, Florida, 40 miles away. So like an hour drive. I'd go to class, every semester, and then I'd zip over to Walt Disney World and pick up shifts because I loved the magic making part where you got to make somebody's day and exceed expectations and all of the old school hospitality stuff. Like, it's stuff's real, like surprise and delight, like do some things that are unexpected for people. But then I realized when I got into leadership and I started having these teams of people, and it was a gradual thing where at first it was like, okay, now I'm 22 and a housekeeping manager. So just because I'm a manager, well, obviously all these people on my team are just going to follow me and they're going to do what I say. Well, you learn, everybody listening and watching right now, you learn real quick that ain't how it works. So you have to do the connecting part first, build that trust. And then I think over the years, and especially later in life, like I got really, really slapped in the face with it when I landed here after graduate school. Because then it was like, okay, now I'm coming from the Cornell Hotel School with a master's degree in this stuff. And
Mhm.
and it was like they didn't care. They're like, bro, this is UNLV country, man. We're number one. Like, enough of you Cornell people. So then it was like, all right, let me back up. And then that's when I started to realize, to answer your question, that this thing was never about Cinderella's castle. It's not about waterfalls in the lobby, this hospitality thing and leadership
Yep.
thing. This thing always has been and always will be about people. And so really then I started to get real passionate about diving into all of this stuff that it sounds like you and I both are passionate about, and we love to teach and coach and to get into conversations like this to unpack it for ourselves and also these communities that we find ourselves in. And so when I started really learning about emotional intelligence and why it's a thing and how it's a thing, and then better, how to improve in all of those four components: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, put them all three together and you got relationship management. Everything switched for me. And then I was like, well, now I'm passionate about making magic for people that I lead, people that are on my team.
Yeah. Can you give me those three again that equal relationship? Because those were really good.
Yeah, it's emotional intelligence has four components, and it all starts with self-awareness. How well do we know ourselves? How well do we know our strengths? How well do we know what gets us frustrated, what gives us joy? That's self-awareness, number one. Number two, self-management. How well we're able to like regulate our emotions, not get too high, not get too low. And also this self-management can also mean this internal drive to get up and go do it anyway. When you're tired, go do the workout anyway. Go to work and show up even when the people are annoying and they're not really, the community isn't communitying yet, but the self-management is the ability to do it anyway. The third one is social awareness. That's the ability to read the room. And that's when I learned, I didn't know this until basically 6 years ago when I started doing this work that I'm doing now. Empathy is a skill, as it turns out. So like, that's real good news for all of us, because it doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't matter how long we've been out here doing any given thing. It just matters how much we choose to practice it. And we can get better at that skill like we can get better at all these other skills. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness. You put all three of those together and you become a really, really, really good relationship manager. So it's kind of like a conductor in an orchestra. The leader doesn't have one seat or play one instrument. Instead, we got to be the conductor to get all the different instruments, all the different people creating this harmony together. And if we're not careful, it'll be like dissonance instead of resonance. And so that's what we're after. And that's what I believe, approaching it with leading with hospitality. You can get to that. It's almost like a fast pass to creating that harmony.
I love it. By the way, you are such a keynote speaker, and I love that. I'm like, you and I speak the same language. Everything is like alliterations, models, frameworks. Like, hey, remember this. These are the three. You said something earlier that I wanna unpack because I think it's really important, and I also want to set the context a little bit, because you were talking about going from managing, quote unquote, right, air quotes for everybody listening. I'm doing the crazy air quote thing, to emotionally connecting. And before I have you unpack that, I think what's really important to set the stage for everybody listening is, I say this all the time, there's only two roles in a relationship. You're either leading or you're following. And if you're not leading, somebody else is. And a relationship is everybody that we're interacting with. And so I think, right now when Taylor's talking, we're talking about potentially team or team culture. You also are, quote unquote, managing your clients, your contacts, people's podcasts that you go on, connections in your life. And so I wanted to kind of set that stage, because I think this is a really important premise that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. And so I'm curious, and this is just the start of the question, but feel free to riff, is like, what is the key differences between managing, right, telling somebody what to do and trying to get it done, or emotionally connecting first?
Yeah. I heard Mark Sanborn, who I love, author, speaker. He wrote the book, The Fred Factor. That book changed my life in 2003, 2004.
What's the book called?
Called The Fred Factor.
The Fred Factor.
Yeah, how passion, creativity, and commitment can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. He taught me how to do keynote speeches. Like he had me do Fred Factor keynotes on his behalf back in the day when I was like side
Mm.
hustling this while I was still at the Cosmopolitan. But he always likes to say, management is power over people. Leadership is power with people.
Yeah,
So
that's a
like,
good. Say that again. Say that again.
yeah, management is power over people, but leadership is power with people.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I've had so many like great leaders over the years and so many like really bad leaders, several like in between. And one
Good.
of those good ones, like I remember he would always say, we manage processes. Like we manage sort of the creation of putting multiple processes together to create systems, but we got to lead people. And so the reality is you're sometimes there's a season or a project or a situation for management. And other times there's a season, a project or an initiative or a moment for leadership. And so the reality is, just like you got to be able to be the conductor with all four of those components of emotional intelligence, what I found, and I'd love to, what do you think, or anybody listening, feel free, type in the comments or send George an email here. But like, you kind of need both. You got to be able to toggle and be that dynamic leader to know when is a management thing and when it's a leadership thing. What do you think?
I love that you asked me this, and I 100% agree. And I'm going to play the devil's advocate for the person thinking about it. There's also not a finish line to this muscle. It's an active pursuit, and the only way to learn it is reps. I
Totally.
100% agree with you because, like you said earlier, which changed my life as well, was understanding that empathy is a skill, right? It's not something you're born with or don't have. It's a muscle that has to be trained. So is leadership and being able to meet people where they are and figure out, I love your conductor analogy. I also go like triage nurse of like which dose for what symptom in this current moment. And I would submit based on my experience, if I was to grade this out of 100%, I'd say about 80% of the focus is on the people and about 20% of it is on the task, because the tasks are really clear. Like every business model's been proven, right? Like it's marketing, it's sales, it's delivery. We know the balls that need to be moved. The deeper question is, why aren't those balls moving or moving as effectively as they could be? And I find that that's where that 80% comes in. So I
Amen
want
to that. I'm aligned. It reminds me of a Walt Disney quote. Ready? It's famous. Many people have probably seen it or heard it. Walt once said, among many other things, Walt once said, you could build, create, and design the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make the dream a reality. And another thing you said reminded me of another story. Like when you grow up at Disney, like they got all kinds of like, it's a culture there for a reason because it's built on storytelling. And so just like they're like the best brand in the world for storytelling, whether they're building a theme park, doing an attraction or a full-length animated feature or, whatever they're putting on Disney Plus, their streaming platform now, which those of us college football fans and NFL fans, we all had to get the upgrade over the last 48 hours to make sure we can stream, ESPN and ESPN2 and ABC. But anyway, when you grow up there professionally, they love to tell stories about Walt. And there's a story about Walt when they were getting ready to open Disneyland, 1955. Apparently, like somebody came up to Walt and they're like, hey, Walt, those trees that are lining Main Street, USA, they're not really filled in yet. There's not all the leaves. They just kind of look like twigs. Don't you want to put better trees before we like open the doors? Walt goes, no, that's on purpose. He goes, Disneyland will never be finished. He goes, as long as there's a need for joy and inspiration in the world, we're going to keep on opening new doors, keep staying curious, and we're going to keep growing and developing and bringing on more and more and more products. And look what just happened over the course of these 70 years. And they're celebrating the 70th anniversary literally this year. And so for me, hearing that, like when I'm 19 and 20 and 21 years old, and then getting out here and doing this different thing, I think it reminds me of our journeys as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the Pastor Rick Warren thing, like when he put in purpose driven life, he said, when we stop learning, we stop leading. So
Yep.
we're never really just like Disneyland will never be finished. We're never finished as leaders. If we want to really lean into it, like if we really want to be those people that can become like that person in somebody else's life that
Oh,
they know they can count on, they know we're going to listen with empathy for once. People will be like Anna from Frozen. They're like, for the first time in forever, I've got a leader that actually listens to me and wants to seek to understand what I'm thinking and feeling. So long way around Robin's barn there, but I love the Walt analogy of the Disneyland will never be finished. Neither will we. That's what
well,
emotional intelligence
it's
is
so
all about.
interesting. I'm not a Disney kid. Like, you're not going to catch me as a grown adult alone at Disney. I'll take my son, right? But
Yeah.
I teach Walt models. Like, I created a model from Walt on how he built Florida's Disney through his dreamer, builder, critic into a brainstorming self-awareness model. And I love this conversation. And I also love your callback to, like, there's no finish line to what I said. This just hit my heart. Like, God just dropped a question in, and I think it's important. I'm going to summarize and I'm going to ask you a question about this, because one of my favorite quotes that I heard, 15 years ago from a mentor was that a student says, I already know, and a master says, thanks for the reminder. Right. And there's no finish line in any of this, or the pursuit of, self-actualization. But, you talk to a lot of people. You're in a lot of organizations talking about leadership. And there's a question I never hear asked a lot. And I think that there's another side of leadership that isn't talked about enough, which is the weight of that responsibility, right? You talked about this earlier with like that self-management of like, well, somebody needs me, but I don't have the capacity right now, right? And navigating that. And so I'm just curious, from your perspective, how do you think about that, feel about that? Because I know for me, when things in life get hard, right? Divorce or bad business, and then there's this team of people, it reminds me of being a Marine all the time. I feel like I'm crying my way through leadership, and I'm just being messy in the process, because I'm like, I don't have much to give, but I can give my presence. But how do people navigate that weight? Because what I see in coaching a lot of the times is this unconscious self-sabotage, where they have the skills, they have the desire, but that fear of responsibility is what prevents those actions from happening forward and continuing to do so. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, this speaks to what I have, like basically 6 virtues of leading with hospitality, and they go in order. This
Okay.
speaks to the final one, the one at the very end of my little model,
I
which
love
is
it.
which is become inspired to inspire other people.
Mm.
Becoming inspired to inspire other people. And part of that is, out of the gate, to answer the question, is we have to continually feed our mind, feed our body, and feed our soul. I say that in these companies, people are like, we're gonna talk about soul in business and leadership. And I'm like, well, how's it working out for you if you don't have it, kind of thing. So like for me, I'm a Christian. And so
Yep.
I'm not gonna preach. Sometimes I do preach, kind of like by accident, but like
Yeah.
I'm not like intentionally trying to preach and like push. I believe in Jesus and God and the Christian walk and the New Testament and the gospel. But when I tell folks, I just got back from Cornell, where I go up there 5 or 6 times a year and I give back to the students, leaders, and teams at the Statler Hotel at Cornell University. And I was speaking to a graduate class, and I told them the same thing. I'll tell this audience the same thing. Yeah, I don't want you to just believe in the same Jesus or God that I do. I just want you to believe in something bigger than yourself, like some kind of higher power, because I think we can all agree, like every time we try to do it all on our own, we end up exactly where you just led us to with your question. I saw Andy Stanley do this years ago in a sermon, and he was doing it on purpose, like a sermon series on purpose, literally like
Yep.
a sense of purpose kind of thing. And so he had this like, this is my Run Disney cup here, my magical Run Disney. And he had like this empty cup. Might have been a pitcher actually. And he's like, it's impossible to pour from an empty cup. And then he would like fill it up with water. And he's like, look how much we can pour into other people as a leader. when we ourselves stay filled up. So that's my encouragement to everybody, is whatever that looks like for you. Like, feed your mind, feed your body. That means like work out, get outside, go like what you go snowboarding, whatever your jam is. Feed your body, eat right. You know, there's only so much. We're older now. Many of us are.
Yeah.
You and I talked to before that we hit record. We're in our 40s. Like, we can't eat the same stuff we used to. But then don't forget about feeding your soul. Not only sort of like the faith piece, but like seeking out, like on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose, community groups to belong to. Because if you've been in this game, whether it's leadership or entrepreneurship or both, for any time at all, you realize pretty quickly what Kobe, kind of says all the time. We're seeing all the Kobe clips, since unfortunately he passed away. But Kobe says in some of these interviews, leadership's lonely.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship's even lonelier. So we have to be intentional about staying, like, feeding our soul by doing exactly what we're doing, right? Like, I already know when we hit stop on this podcast, George Bryant he's going to be in my Rolodex. Like, we're going to be now new, like, sort of like, he said it, but you said it, George, before we hit record. You're like, all right, this is about brothers. It's, taking care of your brothers and sisters here, your brother's keeper, all that kind of thing. So, long-winded way of saying, feed your mind, feed your body, and feed your soul, so that when you get into those moments where it's annoying and they're annoying and it's a difficult conversation, you can always find it. You're going to be filled up so you can pour into other people.
Yeah. Well, you and I teach a lot of the same things, because, when I teach this to entrepreneurs, I say there's three core parts of the game, but everybody neglects the most important part, which is the player, right? Everybody thinks it's the playbook, but the player is the one with the perspective and the passion and the fuel to be able to execute that playbook. And I joke, I'm like, if I gave a high school quarterback Tom Brady's playbook, could they go come back in that Super Bowl? And they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the same playbook. Like, oh, because they haven't become the player yet. And I love the way that you say it, because I've talked about this on this podcast 500 times. I have a core model, and it's feed your mind, feed your body, feed your soul, and earn the right to get on the field, right? Like, you would never get on the field without your pads on. You'd never get on the basketball court without your shoes on. And I was like, yeah, we go into this game of life or game of business or game of leadership, and we don't put our quote unquote pads on. And I love the way that you did it, because since you don't listen to me, and I've said it 700 times on this episode or on this podcast, listen to him, because people like United and Disney and Win have him come teach all of their leaders this. And it's past anecdotal at this point. It's there. And it's that, your cup analogy, it reminded me of another one too. I saw this beautiful one, and I have two just thoughts on this. And if you have anything to add, like, please add it. But it reminded me of two things. So first, I'm going to frame it where one of the things that I had made wrong, because I was a leader in the Marine Corps, like I had 56 Marines under my care in Afghanistan, right? Like, I learned leadership the hard and fast way, right? And there's no quitting, right? Like, it wasn't a 9 to 5. I couldn't give 2 weeks notice. I'm like, oh, they got me for 4 more years and I can't fire anybody and I can't replace them. Like, they are mine. And so whether you like them or yourself, you're leading them. And I believe, Kobe, that I'm going to add an addendum to what Kobe said, that leadership is lonely. Leadership is lonely if you choose for it to be.
Well said.
Because what I think makes the mark of a true leader is one who is as receptive to getting poured into more than they pour out to other people, because it keeps that cup full. And your picture analogy with the cup, and if you're listening to this, you're gonna have to go watch the video, because we're like painting with our hands right now. Game, right? We're pretty comical. We got Disney guy and we got George, who's not Italian but still speaks with his hands all the time over here, just like painting pictures on a podcast. I saw the best one because and I'm going to frame this correctly, because we live in a world that no matter how much work we do on ourselves to, eradicate those bad beliefs or those feelings or emotions, we also live in a world that the moment we remove those weeds from our garden, more weeds are planted in. A bad meeting, a bad conversation, a bad client, a hard thing. And it's a consistent process. And I saw this video, and they were like, they had a cup of water and they had sand in the bottom of the cup. And they're like, hey, how do you get the sand out of the cup? All of it. And they're like, oh, well, you dump it out, or you pour water in, or you do X. And everybody had it because they had another pitcher of water over it. and no one was able to make it work. And then they drew this beautiful analogy and they showed this. And the only way to get that sand out of the cup is by constantly pouring fresh water in a steady stream. And eventually, all the sand leaves the cup and it's just fresh water. And then if you add another bucket of sand, it's not I do one big dump. It is a constant stream that allows that to keep processing and filtering through. And it speaks so much to what you said about like fill your mind, fill your body, fill your soul, whatever that higher purpose is for you. And like for me, that's the word of God, right? Like I know like when there's sand in my cup, I can typically find where I'm not in my Bible enough, or I'm not watching enough sermons, or I'm not spending enough quiet time with God. And I think it's so profoundly powerful. But also when we think about our careers, whether you work a 9 to 5 or you're an entrepreneur and leading a team, our to-do list never gets shorter. And there is always a reason to avoid that work, but that work is the most important work that makes that to-do list effective. And so I just wanted to add that because I love the way that you painted that picture.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
So I got to ask now, because you alluded to this earlier, and open loops drive me nuts because I'm a marketer, right? So you talked about, I know you have two things, like you have like your 5 core values for, like leadership. And then you just talked about your 6. What were those 6 things that you mentioned?
Yeah. And they go in order on purpose. And you're going to know why. Anybody that's been out here doing the leadership game or the entrepreneur game. So first is number 1, a commitment to connection. This is being intentional about staying connected with people that you lead or people that you work with so that leadership doesn't become lonely. The second one is, while we're out here connecting, is striving for self-mastery. That's the emotional intelligence components: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Striving for self-management, because before we can successfully lead other people, we got to figure out how to lead ourselves first. Number 3 is thinking about leadership as a service to other people. Listening, educating, taking action, and delivering on our leadership promise. The 4th one is engaging purposefully. So those are things like being generous. So I did a whole like leadership fable on that just came out in July. So giving our time, giving our talent, giving our heart, and then recognizing people, letting them know, like you mentioned earlier, hey, I see you, I value you, I hear you. And then activating a sense of purpose. There's ways that we can find our personal purpose. We can help other people find their purpose. And this part of it is what I believe Disney always has and continues to do very well. What they're really great at, which I encourage all of my clients and other organizations with whom I connect, is as the leader, figure out a way to connect every single person's individual role to the overarching purpose of the organization. So now they have a sense of purpose, creating both money and meaning at the same time. Commitment to connection, strive for self-mastery, leadership as a service, engage purposefully. Number 5 is coaching with grace, grit, and intention. And then number 6 is becoming inspired to inspire others. And the reason it goes in that order, like think about it. Like I know I've made this mistake many times, particularly at the early part of my leadership journey. It's like, sweet, I just got promoted or I just got hired as a manager. Let me get in here and start coaching and inspiring everybody right out of the gate. And when you've done that, if you've made the same mistake, you realize pretty quickly that falls flat. Why? Because you haven't connected yet. You haven't served yet. You haven't spent time engaging. So that's why it goes in order. And that's like basically lead with hospitality in a nice packaged up 6 virtues there.
And I love those virtues. And I'm gonna bring us down from the virtues into the dirt for a minute, because I love grit. I love playing in the mud. And I feel like as entrepreneurs, as people that are into like growth and personal development, we resonate with these words so deeply. We're like, hey, those 6 virtues of leading with hospitality. And for everybody listening, that's like how to lead any relationship, how to lead your client, how to lead your team, how to lead your partner. Just men, go lead your ladies, right? Like women, same thing. How does somebody practically apply those? How do they take them from words off the wall and put them into practice? Like if somebody listened to this right now is like, dude, this resonates so deeply with me, but like I'm staring at those 6 things that I just wrote down. Where do I start?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, there's a book that lays it all out. And so there's basically three, like, to your point, there's basically, I mean, I grew up a church kid. So like
Yeah.
there's the three-part sermon for each of these virtues. There really is. And that's my leadership development experiences, and that's the work that we do. So quick but not in a hurry, old basketball term, ready? Commitment to connection is being committed to having one-on-one conversations with every single direct report consistently, whether it's once a
Mm.
week, every other week, or once a month. Just do it consistently. Next is make sure you prepare for and execute really productive team meetings. There's something magical about when your team hears the same message at the same time from you or from whomever you would like to invite to facilitate said meeting. So team meetings are huge because it's this space that we can build the community and give each other feedback and further connect. And the third way to stay connected, which we proved to ourselves during the pandemic that we're capable of doing, we're doing a version of it right now. We can be physically distanced, but stay emotionally connected.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, FaceTime. So, and then with our digital communication, email, text, social media, like this, don't underestimate the power as a leader when you haven't seen somebody on your team in person for a couple weeks, a month, or in today's world, it could be years, plural. But just a little note, just a little text, letting them know that you see them and you appreciate them can help you maintain that commitment to connection. The striving for self-mastery is there's books and volumes and different, there's oodles of research, but there's like tactics for
Yeah.
each of those four components of emotional intelligence that we can all use to get better at any given one of them. I recommend everybody, is it Leadership 2.0 or Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry? You get that book, you go in the back, you cut the thing, and then there's a website and a code. You can go on and take an assessment. You'll get a self-awareness score, you'll get a self-management score, you'll get a social awareness score, and you'll get a relationship management score. And then you'll get this thing that's a blueprint, like it's a beautiful thing. It's like, here's some tactics you can do to improve wherever you need to improve. I'll give everybody homework on that one. And then leadership as a service. Think about lead. Ready? Everybody write this down. LEAD, vertically on your paper or in your virtual mind. Listen, educate, act, and deliver.
Mm-hmm.
When you show up like that, that's servant leadership at its finest. So if you're thinking yourself, to your question, George, how am I going to serve today? How am I going to serve my team? Choose one of those four things. Are you listening? Are you hearing them, or are you really listening? What are you teaching? What are you coaching? Are you active and accountable? Do they see you out there? Do they see you in the boat with them? To your point about, you learned that, I'm sure, day one of being in the Marine Corps. Like, you got to be there with your people and then delivering on your promise. LEAD, listen, educate, act, and deliver. By promise, I mean, as a leader, the promise as a leader is like, you know how like when we get the leadership role, it's like this unwritten thing. We're there to solve everybody's problems. Paycheck issue, my schedule's not right, I have an issue going on outside of work. Well, we got to be those people. We got to be that person for other people and always deliver on our promise. The engage purposefully one, what that looks like and feels like, I listed those out. That starts with giving generously. So give your time, give your talent, those God-given gifts, like your gifts, your natural strength. Just give them to people, man. Just straight up give them away, and then give your heart to people. Recognizing people, like sao bona is a term I use in the book. I had writer's block sitting literally like right here 5 or 6 years ago. And I was like, all right, I was like Axl Rose, man, where do we go now? Where do we go? Couldn't figure out I started, you know how we do authors? We started just Googling stuff, and I found the term sao bona. Sao bona is from the Zulu culture in South Africa.
Okay.
And so many people say like the Zulu culture has inspired the culture of South Africa. And the culture of South Africa in many ways has and continues to inspire the cultures in many other countries on the continent of Africa. Now you got this white boy all the way over here in the United States of America, sitting in Henderson, Nevada, Googling stuff. It resonated with me. So Sawubona is from the Zulu culture, and it means I see you.
Mm.
And the grateful reply back is Yebo Sawubona, which means until you saw me, I didn't exist. Gets better. The whole thing together means a person is a person because of other people. So I've read that. And I was like, is there anything more leadership than that? Is there anything more hospitality than that? So we're giving generously. We're letting people know I see you. That's recognition, meaningful recognition, and then activating that sense of purpose. That's engage purposefully. Coaching with grace, grit, and intention. I always bring up this one. People are like, we're going to talk about grace, bro. Like, we in church this Sunday school. I'm like, well, think about the magic that grace can do. It's like, three things I say with that. Ready? Ask for some grace. Hey, man, I missed the mark on that. Can I try again? Oh, you know what? I've been actually, my bad. I just didn't get it finished in time. I know it was due today. Can I have some grace? Another day or two? And then give grace. And then the most important one, which I'm still working on, which is be graceful with your words and with your actions. And then the grit and intention piece comes in. Coaching with grace, grit, and intention. Can you and I be those leaders? Can you and I be those leaders that are able to not only craft a compelling vision, but can we cast it? Can we cast it in such a way that it invites people to the cause? Like Simon Sinek taught us all those years ago with his, what is it? The number 3 most watched YouTube in the history of YouTube, 30 million plus, his Start With Why, TED Talk. Is can we be those leaders that can, and it's a skill, man. You got to practice, and there's an art and a science to it, but vision is where we're going. So we got to be the leaders to say, we're going to become fill in the blank. And by the way, you're a part of this vision. Here's how I see you fitting into it. And then SMART goals. I know it's old school, it's cliche, but it's cliche because it's a thing.
Yep.
So like laser focused, how often, those of us, be honest with yourself. Like how often have we gotten to like Wednesday or Thursday of any given week, the 21st or 22nd of any given month, November of a year, and we turn around and we're like, what exactly did we just get accomplished? Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we didn't have laser focus, SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to that vision, and then time bound along the way. And then it's the execution, having the right conversations at the right time with the right people over and over and over again to keep the ball moving down the proverbial field. Grace, and then vision, SMART goals, and action plans keeps the ball moving. Finally, becoming inspired to inspired, we already covered. Feed your mind, feed your body, feed your soul straight out of the gate. We talked about that. Second one with becoming inspired to inspire other people is to leverage storytelling. Mm-hmm. Like you got a story. You've done some things, and there's people that are looking up to you right now, and you might not, some of them, they are. Some people wouldn't dare admit that they're actually looking up to you. Mm-hmm. I love this Morgan Harper Nichols. I think it's a Christian contemporary like musician. I love this quote. Ready? This is like one of my favorite quotes I've come across in doing this work in the last like 5 years. Tell the story of the mountain you've climbed. Mm-hmm. It could be a page in somebody else's survival guide. I love that.
Good. That's
really I love that. I love that. And then the final one was becoming inspired to inspire. Feed your mind, feed your body, feed your soul. Leverage storytelling. Tell your stories, but ask them to tell you their stories, because in that moment, what's happening? We're connecting. We're relating to each other. Mirror neurons is a thing. I tell a story, you're compelled to tell one right back. And then in those moments, the logic, the part of our brain that tells us to like overthink things and should I trust this person, it starts to chill a little bit. The right side of our brain, the emotion, now it's like freaking fireworks at Magic Kingdom on the 4th of July, And then the final thing though is, can you elevate the experience? Like, can you elevate the experience for the people that are on your team, that are partnering with you, doing the work George and I do? We're pouring into other teams and other leaders and preparing them and helping them maximize their journey. And I'll wrap it with this thing I learned from Chip and Dan Heath. Ready? I love them. Everything they write, not that I'm bitter.
Great books.
Everything they write turns to gold, does it not?
Yes.
Switch, how to change when change is hard. made to stick. Well, I loved their one that was the power of moments. Why some moments are more extraordinary than others. There's 4 things. Here's another opportunity. We can write it down, put it in the show notes, whatever you want to do. And it's Chip and Dan. I didn't come up with it. I just love it. And I'm sharing this. I'm sharing their message on I got my own books now. I'm still selling these other guys' books. Mark Sanborn's Fred Factor, Chip and Dan Heath, anything they write, everybody pick it up and read them. But here's what they say, ready? And all their stuff is research based. And it spells epic. If you and I can, whether we're delivering a service, to your point, customer mapping, or we're leading teams, or we're building teams, if we can make people feel these 4 things at the same time, apparently that is what separates extraordinary moments from just ordinary moments. And first one is an elevated sense of joy. An elevated sense of joy. The second one is pride, but the good pride. That sense of pride where you're proud to belong to something. You're proud to belong to a community. You're proud to belong to the cause. The next one is a moment of insight. So are we able to share some insight or teach people things that they don't soon forget? And then we end where we start. The C stands for connection. If you can build these environments where people feel a sense of connection to each other, a sense of emotional connection to you as a leader, and most importantly, a sense of emotional connection to the cause or to the mission of the organization, according to Chip and Dan and the research. And if you and I think about it and we look back at all of the different jobs, all the different seasons, all the different things that we've gone through, we can probably point to the most joyous times in our life when we felt an elevated sense of joy. We were proud to be there. We were learning stuff every around every corner, and we felt incredibly connected. So there you go. And a longer than you probably bargained for version of what leading with hospitality, those 6 virtues, looks like and feels like, from the clouds to the dirt down here on the tactical level.
It's great. I don't have to talk. This is the best seat in the house over here. I just get to listen and take notes. And just for everybody, I teach this stuff. I have a page of notes just from what you just shared. And I'm like, man, you quote just as much, if not more books than I do, which I love. And if you're listening to this, if you happen to have written down every book that he recommended, just send them to me in a list, because I'll be there to put them out. But there are so many that I'm struggling to keep up, and some incredible reads that I've read in there, and you said one thing, I've learned this recently. I say to my clients all the time, my private clients, I'm like, leadership is saying the same thing as many times as required till the last person gets it, right? It's like being a parent. If you're a parent listening to this, my daughter is about to be 21 and my son is 9. I've probably said things to my daughter 7.2 million times. And now she's says it back, and she thinks it's her idea. And I was like, the amount of times that I had to say that, right? And that's parenting, but it's not complicated. It's simple. And I know we throw this around like cliche. The reason they're cliches and we label them that is because the simplicity shatters our ego for us having to just consistently implement it and do it. And, the one thing that stood out for me is when you were talking about the SMART goals, right? Because we've all heard these for years, right? And my incredible partner says this all the time, and she says, what gets measured gets managed. And I love that, because if I think about this whole episode already, right? Whatever's resonated with you, if you're listening, right? Whether it's, creating a moment of epicness, right? Whether it's grabbing one of those virtues of leadership and you're like, that's an area for me to improve, right? Or, maybe I'm not intentionally connecting. The true mark of success in leadership is managing all of it, having it be measurable. You talk about adding joy to somebody's day or checking in. I do the same thing, but I literally have on a sticky note in front of me on this paper. I sat down yesterday morning on Monday and I audited my text messages, my emails, my clients, my friends, and I made a list. It says connect with. And there are 17 names on that list that God put on my heart to reach out to. And every one of those things becomes something to measure and something to act on, right? And earlier I said, in relationships, you're either leading or you're following. And we forget that in this world, whether it's our clients, whether it's our team, whether it's a business partner, if we have the thought, it's our responsibility to lead in. because they have their life, they have their day, they have their kids, they have their own stuff going on. And it's like reconnecting a God connection for me. Like I always joke with people, like if you ever drive in silence, right? No radio, no anything. And you're just sitting there at 2:33 p.m. driving through a snowstorm in Montana, and all of a sudden Taylor pops into my brain. I didn't wake up that morning at 6 a.m. and be like, hey, today at 2:33 p.m., I want you to remind me, unconscious mind, of Taylor. Like there's a reason. I say it's God calling, and he's just asking me to pick up the phone. But we have to be intentional about these things. And I think about all these moments that we have in our day to day where we get those thoughts and like we just dismiss them. We're like, go to voicemail, right? And I think that those are the moments that separate leaders from followers. They're the invitation. And I'm not saying this because it's easy. There's days where I'm like, if I send all these text messages, I'm going to have to hide from my phone when they start coming back in. And I was like, but it's up to us to keep moving that ball. And so I loved when you said that, but it like collapsed it all in my brain a bit because I love those virtues. And which book is that outlined in?
That's Lead with Hospitality, the blue one.
That's the Lead with Hospitality
Yep.
book. Okay.
Yep. Available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, or wherever books are sold.
Yeah, and I'm gonna link everything. And you're so good at keynoting and selling. I love it. The seating, the positioning. You also embody Go Giver. If you've never read Go Giver,
yeah, I reached out to Bob Berg. I was on his podcast when I did my first book.
Yeah, he was on mine
way back in the day, and built a little relationship with him. I love his work. I love the Go Giver. I called him with this. I called him in February, and I'm like, I'd love for you to write the foreword to Give Hospitality. Maybe it could be like a sequel to the Go Giver. He was like, I love you, and like that's very kind of you. He goes, I stopped doing that like 5 years ago because so many people call the guy asking for the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine being that successful. Your message is that powerful that you have to turn away. So he's such a great guy, though. He's chilling, man, down in Florida. He's still, he only does very select gigs anymore. But yeah, the Go Giver is like still relevant. It's still powerful. It's still on all these lists, you know?
And awesome. I actually, it's a perfect example to talk with humility about leadership because leadership is doing it with people. Every single time I talk to Bob, every single time I reference Bob, every time I post about Bob, if I don't also tag David, Bob corrects me.
Really?
And he's like, no, it's me and David. It's me and David, even on the podcast, because I just had Bob on the show. And he's like, no, and David. And I love it because it's everybody wins, right? Like this is a team and like he embodies it so well. So well. I have a book for you.
Okay.
Because I have an incredible client who I love dearly. He wrote a book called The Buy-in Advantage. His name is Dave Garrison. And there's so many similarities because it's all about how to create that buy-in culture, how to get the emotional investment, how to have a shared vision, master collective genius, use questions instead of statements, right? And so much. And for everybody listening as well, The Buy-in Advantage is absolutely incredible. I've read it, I don't know, probably 11 times because he's a client. And the more I read it, I'm like, oh, this is like my go-to manual now and all these buckets. But I'm curious from your perspective as we get near like landing this plane. I know there's a lot that we've already shared because you basically gave like 4 mini TED Talks, which I love. I'm saying that as a compliment and I'm really grateful for it because for anybody listening, this is one of those episodes to save, to pause. And then when you find something that tickles, to go dive into that thing. And then once you've solved that thing, come back to the next tickle, right? Like that's the way to navigate this. But for the person listening and they're like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. This is kind of a 2-part question that we're going to wrap with before we end the show. Is number one is where do you see people get stuck the most going from understanding these concepts to implementing them? And when implementing some of these, what are the KPIs per se, or what are the indicators or markers that it's working, right? Like what should they be looking for? What should they be feeling? And that's kind of how I wanted to land this.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say the two biggest skills and all the things we talked about that are embedded within this whole journey are acceptance and empathy. And that, as my balloons go up.
I love the Mac emojis over there. I got a thumbs up from you earlier. I got the balloons going. I got mine turned off because I talk with my hands so much.
I should do that. I don't even know how to do that. But no, and those, ironically, though, to answer your question, are also the areas where I see people getting stuck. So acceptance, think about it in 3 contexts. Accept yourself for who you are. Accept other people for who they are. not for what they've accomplished, not for how good they are or are not yet, not for their status, not for what they can get you, but no, who they are as an individual, as a human being. And then the third one, which I'm also still working on, is being able to accept organizational realities. That one there is the one that gets me tripped up the most. And that's the one, I don't know about you, as I'm working with leaders and leadership teams, particularly that might be a little bit on like the start of their journey, like they just are getting into leadership. Like that's a skill that you got. Talk about reps. Like that one didn't come naturally for me, and I'm 46 now. I'm still working on it, being able to accept organizational realities. And that's just a way to just say, take all the stuff you cannot control, put all that energy, put all that passion into things that you can. And that's your mindset, how you show up and how you treat people. And the empathy part is the other area where I just see so many leaders at every single level of leadership, all the different generations, whether it's the greatest, there's 5 generations in the workforce at the same time right now, by the way. Greatest generation, baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, new to the party, Gen Zs. And so like, for me, I don't know about you guys listening or watching or George, like empathy still is like, dude, we got to practice that. So like those are the 2 areas, acceptance and empathy. And if anybody watching, listening, I just challenge us, and I'm in there with you. You know, at tscott1502 on Instagram. George will put my stuff in there. Taylor at leadwithhospitality.com. George is a resource. I want to be a resource. We got to be together, those of us that are like-minded, and help each other get through these seasons. But acceptance and empathy, I believe, are the 2 things.
Before you go to the next part, I hear this a lot and I talk about this a lot, but I feel like this is the best time to say it. I've been focused or asked a ton. I just finished a retreat. Like, how do you practice empathy? There's a really, really easy way to understand this. It's listen and ask questions. That's all it is. It is childlike curiosity and utilizing our 2 ears instead of our 1 mouth, and then repeating back what you heard.
Bingo. And let me run this by you.
Go ahead.
See if you like this. If you like it, share it with your retreats and stuff. A guy, I didn't even like him, but I was in a session with, I was a participant, and he taught us this, how to do empathy, like in 1 line, like how to put it in action. And it was in a hospitality setting, so we get yelled at by guests all the time. Here's how it goes. Ready? And you could use it in leadership. You can use it in personal, professional, with a partner, with a friend, with a family member. If what happened to you had happened to me, I'd be just as frustrated as you are. If what happened to you had happened to me, I would be just as sad as you are. If what happened to you had happened to me, I would feel the same way. So that's the way he would teach us to read it back. 100%. I love that. I
mean, even in marriage, they call it the imago dialogue, right? Like it's everywhere, but it's to like close the loop. That's right. Somebody only feels seen and heard when you let them know what you heard, not in your perspective, in their perspective. And what I've realized is that's also where it's wrung out, and God has wrung out my heart, and where I thought I had empathy. No, I needed to learn how to listen and regurgitate it back, because it helped me realize where I was painting somebody else's situation with my own perspective and not seeking to understand theirs. So I love that phrase. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. If what happened to you had happened to me, I would be just as fill in the blank emotion as you are.
Yeah. And there's even deeper stuff here with like mirroring and labeling with negotiation and neurolinguistic programming. But like that alone, just because it is a muscle, and I hear a lot of people talk about empathy, but I was just like, we need to quantify this for everybody, myself included. I'm doing this with my partner. I have to do this with my son because he's 9 and I'm 42. And I'm like, I do not see that situation the way that you do, but I can when I'm curious. And I ask questions, and I'll also create the space to listen. So I wanted to interject in that moment. So then the second part of the question is where we'll land the plane. Do you remember it?
Yeah. KPIs. So like
how do I know, like when I'm practicing this or any of these principles, how do I know I'm on the right track? Like what should I be looking for?
Yeah. I believe I always want to write a book. Maybe we'll do one together one day. That's just called Better Days.
Mm.
When you do those two things, you're gonna have better days. There will KPI. Maybe that's not on anyone's like actual KPI list in any corporate setting, but you will have more good days than bad days.
Yeah.
You will have not only results, you'll have relationships and results. And for anybody watching, listening, how many know? Raise your hand if you're in your car. Well, if you're in your car, don't raise your hand. But like if you're listening, raise your hand if you know when we get the relationships right, the results tend to follow suit. So I think it's that. I think it's just this. Maybe we end where we began. It is money and meaning at the same time. Like what work out there? I need to look this up, but there's got to be some work out there that quantifies meaning. So that's what I would say is if you're looking at your financials, whether it's your personal finances or your business finances or your clients' business results, and they are in a northeasterly trajectory, or if they're on a if this is their, shout out Darius Rucker comeback song season where they've started to right the ship. I think that's when you start to know that these things are, you have done a great job of doing the acceptance and doing the empathy. Why? Because you have relationships as the foundation, which have opened the door for you to be able to deliver these results.
Amen, brother. Amen. And I have one note, and then I'm going to ask for you to share where everybody can connect with you, and we will make sure everything's linked in the show notes. This comes from me as a Christian who loves God and Jesus with all my heart. Results are independent of happiness. Happiness is not a KPI. Joy is, but happiness is not, because I remind myself often that the word happy is not in my Bible, but joy is. And every moment, if you are set out to be a leader, which I would submit if you are listening to this podcast, the reason my branding is a lighthouse is because lighthouses are built on strong foundations to withstand the storms. And we say, thank you. Thank you for the trial. Thank you for pressure testing me. Thank you for letting me know where the leaks are so that I can shore them up and rebuild them. And even James, it says, count it all as blessings. And to practice this muscle and all of these muscles doesn't mean we do it perfect. It doesn't mean we're like happy about it. It means that we're choosing the perspective that this is helping us become better, because with that, we can give so much more with it. And I think that that's the perfect way to wrap and apply this to it, right? Like, and for any parent here or anybody that's married, yes, we have plenty of epic moments in our relationships with our kids and with our wives. But then if you look at some of those epic moments, there were plenty of them that when you faced it, there was a moment where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I can't do this. This doesn't feel good to me. But on the other side of walking it through the way that you did, with empathy, with understanding, the reward on the other side was 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times greater. And some of those go down as our most epic moments. And I think that that's what it is when we lead relationships and lead teams and lead clients. And it's a perfect perspective to put a bow on the present of everything that Taylor shared. And so Taylor, you have a lot of places that people connect with you. I will link them all in the show notes. But if you had like a preferred place for people to connect with you, if they have a question, they want to see anything, like where's your preferred place, then you can give them all of them.
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably where I spend most of my time, and Instagram. So LinkedIn, just type in Taylor Scott, and then if we're not connected yet, do like a space and then start to type lead with hospitality. I'll usually pop up. Okay. Taylor Scott, lead with hospitality there. LinkedIn. Instagram is tscott1502. tscott1502. I also have a travel agency franchise called Lead with Hospitality Travel Group by Dream Vacations. So look up Lead with Hospitality Travel Group, which is on Instagram. And then our website is leadwithhospitality.com. There you're going to be able to find all of our stuff, our books, our resources, live learning experiences, keynote information, should you be interested. And then my email, taylor@leadwithhospitality.com. Thank you so much for having me on here. This was fun.
Brother, it was truly an honor. It was a gift. I could literally talk to you or listen to you all day. We'd be in trouble if we co-facilitated like together. I'd be like, tag. Wait, one more thing. Wait, let me add to that. I love it. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And, for everybody listening, just pick one of those places. But at minimum, if anything resonated, if anything landed, If you have a question about anything, you always have the ability to get a hold of me on my website or in my Instagram, but also send it to Taylor. I'd connect with you on LinkedIn, except I'm banned for life, so I can't do it there, but I am connected with you on Instagram. But,
Okay.
send him a personal email, right? If you're like, hey, like this part resonated with me, or I'm curious about this. I know he loves it. I know he loves to hear it. I know he loves the feedback and the kudos. And we forget that everybody loves to be seen, including Taylor, for sharing all these incredible things. And so if something resonated, if you loved it, if you appreciated his Disney essence as a 46-year-old man, like whatever it is, just take that moment. And at minimum, if you do nothing more, none of this resonated, you're not going to read the books, and you want to practice one thing from the episode, which is make somebody feel seen, I personally, whether he likes it or not, invite you to make Taylor feel seen. And so share something, share a question, share a takeaway, share anything so that he can hear this, have a feedback loop, and know that this is the conversation needed in the world and that it is making a difference. And so, brother, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show. It was incredible. I love it. I got pages of notes. So
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And, for everybody listening, this has been another crazy episode of the Mind of George show, where I believe it belongs in a straitjacket. So I only share the safest parts with you. And today we just shared Taylor's parts too. And so he's equally crazy as me. And my invitation for you is always the same. Every single thing that we're doing in our life, we're only growing it or bringing it into integrity if we're actively pursuing it. And there are a lot of things from today's episode that you can choose to pursue. And there's a version of you 90 days, 180 days, 365 days from now that's going to have a conversation with yourself. And it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to go the way of saying thank you for taking action on that thing that I heard today consistently. Or you're going to look back and you're going to wonder why you didn't believe that cliche statement, why you didn't practice that cliche statement. And you're going to want to put it into practice. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the food is on the plate and the fork is in your hand, but you are the only one that can stab it and eat it. And the invitation's always there. But my one ask and my one prayer for you is that you don't allow this episode to become shelf-help. If you heard anything, if you resonated with anything, if you felt anything, in my world, that's God nudging you in that direction. In your world, that might be the universe or a vision or whatever it is you believe in, but there's a reason it resonated. And I feel like if you pull that thread and follow your thread, the only thing on the other side of it could be beneficial for you. And there's no downside in any of it. So pick one thing, earn the right to complicate it, earn it, finish it, come back to the next thing, and practice whatever it is that resonated with you today. And I believe there will be a version of you in the future that says thank you. And so make your future self proud by taking action on those things today. There were plenty to be shared. There were plenty to be executed. There were plenty to be had. And there are plenty that can be implemented in this moment. In one text message, one conversation, one meeting with your team, one virtue for you to apply, creating an epic moment with your spouse, creating an epic moment with a customer. You pick one and take action on it. And that's my invitation for everybody today. So we will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, we done. Bye.